Do you feel it? That subtle weight, that melancholy that sometimes envelops you for no apparent reason. Like an invisible inheritance? A sadness that doesn't quite feel like your own, or an anxiety that whispers tales from another time, distant echoes still vibrating within your very cells. What if I told you, with all the gentleness and solemnity this subject demands, that these diffuse emotions, these patterns endlessly repeating in your life, like a play whose ending you know but whose course you cannot change, could be the deep resonances, the persistent overtones of the unhealed pain of your mother, your foremothers, and entire lineage of women before you? A pain that, unbeknownst to you, and perhaps unbeknownst to them too, has been transmitted, not through explicit words, rarely through direct confessions, but through the deafening silence of the unspoken, through the very energy, the subtle and powerful vibration of your primary bond. This exploration we are embarking on together, you and I, here and now, is not a trivial path, nor always an easy one. It demands courage, the courage to look where we've been taught to avert our gaze. But it is a profoundly, existentially liberating path. It invites us to dive with respect and curiosity into the sometimes murky, sometimes luminous waters of the family unconscious, that ocean of shared memories, where, as the great explorer of the soul, Carl Gustav Jung, so brilliantly illuminated archetypes, dynamics, complexes, and collective memories reside, influencing us far more than our ordinary consciousness suspects. This is not about assigning blame, not about pointing fingers, for each generation does its best with the hand it was dealt. Rather, it's about understanding, with infinite compassion, a subtle mechanism, a transmission from soul to soul, from heart to heart, so that finally, if such is your deep desire, you can break free and reclaim your full emotional and spiritual sovereignty. For ancient wisdom, a wisdom that transcends ages and cultures, whispers this truth to us. Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, these figures of Stoicism, already taught us the art of discernment, the importance of distinguishing what depends on us from what does not, the art of inner detachment from that which is not truly ours. And they still guide us today towards this essential recognition. Some battles we fight fiercely, some burdens that crush us, are not truly our own. They are the echo of a past that only asks to be heard, acknowledged, and then gently released. Imagine for a moment, with all the tenderness you can muster, your mother. Whatever the nature of your relationship today, she is your first connection, the sacred portal, the earthly vessel through which you entered this incarnation, this world of matter and sensation. It is she who connected you to life in its first moments, who gave you, by her mere presence, the first reference of what it means to feel alive, to be safe, to be loved. Her gaze upon you, the warmth of her body, the melody of her voice, the emotional atmosphere she carried within her, and which emanated from her like a perfume. All of this constituted the foundational cradle of your being, the first symphony, the first score upon which your own notes began to be written. But what happens when this cradle, so essential, is itself laden with painful unspoken things, ungrieved losses, silenced pains, embedded traumas, emotional burdens that she herself may have inherited from her own mother, and so on, back through time? The child you were, innocent and utterly dependent, and that part of you, that inner child who still lives within you, perceives absolutely everything. Like an ultra-sensitive inner radar, an emotional photographic plate you captured, you recorded the invisible frequencies, the stifled sighs in the dead of night, the silences heavy with meaning after a tense phone call, the muscular tensions in her arms that held you, the joys extinguished even before they could bloom. Out of unconscious loyalty, that unbreakable archaic bond that unites a child to its mother, out of infinite and unconditional love, or simply because energy always seeks a path, a channel for release, you may have begun, very early on, to carry these emotional suitcases that did not belong to you. As if, by absorbing a part of her suffering, By becoming a kind of emotional sponge, you could lighten her load, save her, repair something for her. A touching illusion, born of a child's love, but terribly costly for your own fulfillment, your own vitality, your own melody. This transmission, understand this well, is not limited to behaviors learned by mimicry or to crudely expressed emotions. It is deeper, more insidious, more vibrational. It is fundamentally energetic, subtly transgenerational. Cutting-edge science, notably quantum physics and epigenetics, and the most ancient spirituality are increasingly converging on this understanding of a memory that transcends the individual. Think about this, and let this image steep within you. When your mother was still a tiny fetus in your grandmother's womb, her own supply of eggs, containing the one that would years later become your very first cell, was created. This primordial ovum, this spark of life carrying all your potential, was therefore already present in a way, within the energetic field, the aura, the intimate lived experience of your grandmother. It bathed in her joys, her sorrows, her anxieties, her unresolved traumas. Then this same ovum, having become part of your mother, was the silent, vibrant witness to her entire life, from her birth to your conception, capturing, like a hypersensitive antenna, every significant frequency, every intense emotional vibration, every major stress, every deep love. Imagine the phenomenal amount of information, subtle memories, emotional charges that could have been encoded in this way, superimposed, transmitted from generation to generation, particularly through the female line, the ancestral guardian of life and its mysteries. It's a veritable energetic imprint, a complex vibrational signature transmitted like an emotional DNA, a subtle information field that influences our predispositions, our sensitivities, our reactions. We speak here of cellular memories, where the body itself becomes the repository of undigested past experiences. We speak of morphogenetic fields, those invisible organizational blueprints that structure life, where a family system's past experiences leave a trace, a resonance that can influence, condition, even program subsequent generations. This isn't magic, nor a mere poetic metaphor. It's the recognition that everything is interconnected in this immense ocean of energy, that is the universe, that energy and emotion are powerful, creative, or destructive forces shaping our inner and outer reality, far beyond what our rational intellect can easily grasp. The law of vibration, known to spiritual traditions for millennia, teaches us that every thought, every emotion emits a specific frequency. Chronic unexpressed sadness, a deeply rooted ancestral fear, repressed anger passed from mother to daughter, an unspeakable shame linked to a family secret. These create a particular vibrational field, a kind of family energetic climate into which a child is born, grows, and to which they may unconsciously attune, like a musical instrument resonating with a dominant note. So, how does this transmission, this family resonance, manifest concretely, palpably, in the very fabric of your daily life? Perhaps it's that irrational, visceral fear of abandonment which makes you cling to others, or conversely, sabotage your relationships before they become too intimate, because your mother, or your grandmother herself experienced brutal separations, impossible grief, betrayals. Perhaps it's a chronic difficulty in allowing yourself happiness, success, abundance, as if an inner voice whispers that you are not worthy, or that you would unconsciously betray a lineage of women who knew sacrifice, deprivation, incessant toil. Or it might translate into desperately repetitive relationship patterns. You always attract the same type of unavailable, critical, or dependent partners. You endlessly relive the same power dynamics, submission, or conflict, which are, in fact, the muffled echoes of your foremother's dysfunctional relationships. A diffuse but persistent feeling of inner saturation, as if you're constantly on the verge of emotional overflow. A free-floating anxiety with no immediate identifiable cause, an exhausting hypervigilance, as if you must always be on guard, anticipating invisible danger, decoding others' hidden intentions, sensing atmospheres with painful acuity, to the point where you no longer know what belongs to you and what comes from outside. These are just a few examples among many others of this transgenerational inheritance that can manifest as unexplained physical symptoms, autoimmune diseases, where the body seems to turn against itself, creative blocks, difficulty finding your place in the world, a sense of existential illegitimacy. You might feel chronically exhausted from carrying what overflows from your parents, from sensing atmospheres with a sensitivity that overwhelms you, from being a veritable emotional sponge, absorbing everything without a filter, to the point of saturation. This burden can even manifest as a kind of mental fog, a difficulty thinking clearly, making aligned decisions, as if part of your life force is constantly being siphoned off by these ancestral preoccupations. The first step, the gateway to liberation, and undoubtedly the most crucial on this demanding but oh-so transformative healing path, is awareness. It's daring to look, to acknowledge honestly and without judgment that this tenacious melancholy, this dull anxiety, this disproportionate anger, this bottomless sadness or this limiting pattern that clings to you may not entirely belong to you, or at least not in its primary origin. It's like lighting a single candle in a vast, dark, forgotten room. Suddenly, what was confusing, formless, indistinct, and overwhelming begins to take on a new perspective, a new relief. The outlines become clearer. Naming these inheritances is already beginning to distance yourself from them, to create a space between you and them. It's affirming, this is an energy, an emotion, a story that I perceived, that I may have carried, but it is not the essence of who I am. Then, with patience and perseverance, it's about learning to distinguish filial love, that sacred, pure, and unconditional bond that connects you to your mother, from the sacrificial and unconscious carrying of her suffering. Loving your mother, honoring her for the gift of life, in no way, ever, means having to shoulder her unresolved pain, her regrets, her traumas, her limitations. This is a tragic and common confusion, a source of immense suffering and thwarted lives. You can love her deeply, with an open and mature heart, while choosing, with courage and determination, to free yourself from what does not belong to you, from what hinders your own soul's path. It is an act of supreme courage, an act of true and demanding love towards yourself, and paradoxically, a gift you also give her. Because by freeing yourself, you offer her the possibility, if she chooses to see her own burden differently. This is where the Jungian concept of individuation comes in with great relevance. To become a distinct, whole, autonomous individual, fully oneself. To shed unconscious identifications, invisible and toxic loyalties, those silent pacts made in childhood that chain us to destinies that are not ours, to roles that suffocate us. Individuation is the alchemical process by which we integrate our shadow, those parts of ourselves that we judge, reject, or ignore, and which often contain our greatest hidden strengths, to become a more complete, more authentic being. This requires courage. Yes, the courage to face the family shadow, the secrets, the taboos, but also your own shadow, those parts of you that accepted, even sought, to carry these burdens, perhaps out of a need for love, for recognition, or for fear of separation. It requires immense compassion. For your mother, for your foremothers, for their often difficult and obstacle-strewn paths. And above all, infinite compassion for yourself, for the child within you, who did what they could to survive and be loved. Understanding their stories, not to find excuses or to indulge in a victim stance, but to illuminate your own, to untangle the knotted threads of your own narrative. Sometimes in a lineage, a soul, often more sensitive, more aware, chooses on a higher plane or out of an urgent inner necessity to become what might be called a medicine child, a chain breaker. This is the one who, through their quest for meaning, their thirst for truth, their very suffering, becomes painfully aware of these detrimental transmissions and initiates profound personal healing work. By healing yourself, by doing this work of deprogramming and inner reprogramming, you are not just liberating yourself in a selfish endeavor. Imagine a vast web of energy, a quantum field where everything is interconnected, where every thought, every emotion, every action has an impact on the whole. Every thread you patiently unravel within yourself, every wound you lovingly cleanse and soothe, sends a healing vibration, a wave of light through this family web. This is sometimes called reverse transmission, or upward healing. By freeing yourself, you can energetically lighten the burden of your ancestors, even if they are no longer of this world, as if the light of your consciousness and your love could travel back up the thread of generations soothing ancient pains. And of course, more tangibly, you offer a radically different, lighter, more conscious, freer inheritance to your own descendants, if you have them, or simply to all those who will cross your path and benefit from your peaceful and radiant presence. You break the cycle of repetitive suffering. You become a bridge to a different future for your lineage. The ultimate goal, the ripe fruit of this long process, is not to cut yourself off from your roots, to deny your history, nor to wage war against your mother or your past. That would be another form of non-healing. Rather, it is about transforming the nature of this bond, purifying it, to access a more adult, more mature, more conscious love for your mother, founded on mutual and respectful recognition of two distinct and sovereign individuals, each with their unique path, their own responsibilities, their wounds, and their strengths. A love no longer based on an infantile need for repair, a confusion of identities where one no longer knows who feels what, or an impossible rescue fantasy that exhausts both parties, but on deep respect, enlightened compassion, and the freedom to be fully oneself, while allowing the other to be fully themselves. It is an arduous but magnificent path towards greater personal integrity, a profound alignment with your essence, your own soul, your inner guidance that constantly speaks to you through your feelings, your intuitions, your synchronicities. When you stop vibrating at the disharmonious frequency of past and inherited pains, you begin to emit your own unique, clear, true, and powerful melody. You no longer react to situations and people from your childhood wounds or ancestral memories. You respond with wisdom and discernment from your center, from your adult and conscious being. You no longer passively endure events as fated. You actively create your reality in accordance with your deepest values and aspirations. You reclaim your inner sovereignty, that feeling of being the captain of your own ship, even in the midst of storms. It is no longer the unconscious, with its automatisms and ancestral fears, that leads the dance of your life, but your enlightened consciousness, your attentive presence. You learn to radically trust your feelings, those subtle whispers of your soul, those gut feelings that tell you what is truly good and nourishing for you, what makes you grow, what makes you radiate from within. Synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences, then multiply in your life, like benevolent winks from the universe, tangible signs that you are on the right path, that existence conspires with you when you are aligned with your innermost truth. So now, I invite you to take some time for yourself, a sacred time of inner observation. What are the recurring emotions, the emotional leitmotifs that weigh you down, that return again and again like a wave on the shore? What patterns of behavior, relationship, thought repeat endlessly in your life, giving you the feeling of being caught in a vicious cycle? Are there known family stories, hushed-up secrets, ungrieved losses, confirmed or suspected traumas in your maternal or even paternal lineage that could shed new light on your present, on your current difficulties? Welcome these reflections, these memories, these intuitions, without judgment, without excessive analysis, with infinite gentleness and great kindness towards yourself. This healing path is an organic process, a courageous and deeply personal inner journey. You are not alone in feeling this, in carrying these echoes of the past. Many of us, souls in search of meaning and liberation, carry, to varying degrees, these transgenerational resonances. This message I am conveying to you today is intended, above all, as a message of profound hope and radical emancipation. Yes, we are undeniably influenced by our family heritage, by the subtle vibrations, the information fields that shaped us from our earliest age, and even before. But we also have, and this is where our creative power lies, an extraordinary capacity a divine potential through lucid awareness, through patient and determined inner work, through conscious choices to free ourselves from these transgenerational burdens, from these karmic debts that no longer belong to us. By understanding these subtle and complex mechanisms of transmission, by daring to look with courage and love at what needs to be seen, acknowledged, and honored within us and in our lineage, by actively and daily choosing healing over repetition, it then becomes possible, not only to break the invisible chains of the past, but also to transform the lead of suffering into the gold of wisdom. It becomes possible to live a more aligned, more vibrant, more joyful life, a life that reflects who you truly are at the deepest level of your being. It becomes possible to build healthier, more nourishing, more authentic relationships, and to transmit in turn, by your mere transformed presence, a legacy of light, consciousness, and freedom. If these words, these vibrations, resonate deeply within you, if you feel this inner calling, this insistent whisper of your soul, to finally shed what is not yours, so that you can at last write your own story, with your own colors, your own music, know that this first step of recognition, this moment of lucidity, is already immense. It is a seed of transformation that has been planted. If you feel ready to affirm your intention, comment below, "I choose my light and I set myself free," as a commitment to yourself, a symbolic first step on this sacred path. Share this exploration, this revelation perhaps, with those around you who might also be seeking answers, relief, and inner peace. Subscribe to continue receiving keys, inspirations, and guidance to nourish your soul, illuminate your path, and spread your wings. Always remember this, like a mantra, a breath of truth. Your life is a precious and unique canvas. And even if the first layers of paint were influenced, even imposed by others by the history of those who came before you, you always have, at every moment, the sovereign power to choose the colors, textures, and shapes you wish to bring to it today, tomorrow, and for the rest of your journey. Healing your mother's pain within you is ultimately choosing yourself, in your entirety, in your light, and in your shadow. And that is perhaps, paradoxically, the most beautiful tribute, the greatest act of love you can give her, and give yourself. It is rediscovering the original frequency, the pure and crystalline note of your soul, and finally letting it sing, vibrate, and radiate into the world, for your highest good and the highest good of all.